The other big news yesterday, Senator Bernie Sanders announced that he is running for president of the United States. And so pleased to have Senator Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. He'll be taking your calls at our national town hall meeting. Senator Sanders, welcome back.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you. I was so pleased to hear this announcement yesterday that you are running for president. And the calls yesterday were just amazing. I believe Jim put a bunch of them up on YouTube. I hope you have an opportunity to see them. Tell us your thoughts on why Bernie for president.
Well, I'll tell you. As you know, this is an issue I have been thinking long and hard on, and the reason is that in this nation today, the reason that I'm running is that in this nation today, which is at this moment the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, and we are wealthier today than we have ever been in our history, yet in the midst of all that, we have a middle class which is disappearing, and that means that there are listeners to this show who are not working one job, they're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, trying to cobble together an income and some health care. There are people who are listening to this show who are worrying about how they're going to feed their families tomorrow, because we have almost as many people living in poverty now as any time in the history of this country. So, Tom, the question immediately surfaces. How does it happen that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, the vast majority of the people are losing ground, and there are a whole lot of people who are suffering, don't have any health insurance, can't afford health care, can't afford dental care, can't afford to send their kids to college, spending half of their incomes on rent? How does it happen? And a lot of that has to do, and the reason that I am running for president, has to do with the greed of corporate America and the billionaire class who apparently want it all. And what we are looking at right now, is literally a grotesque and obscene level of income and wealth inequality. Now, if you and I had dinner, and I ate 3/4 of the food on your plate, or 90% of the food on your plate after digesting my own food, doesn't sound very good, but that's exactly what's happening in the American economy today. These guys got it all. So when you have a situation where today 99% of all of the new income generated goes to the top 1%, when you have a situation where the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%, where in the last 2 years alone, the wealthiest 14 people in this country saw their wealth increase by $157 billion, which is more wealth than the bottom 40% have. When you have that incredible disparity and inequality, this is not moral, it's not good economics, and it is certainly not sustainable. So the goal here is not very hard. I mean, the long-term goal is how do we establish an economy and a political system which works for all people? And that's not, I think we know how to do it. The problem is we're going to come up against people who are very, very greedy, very selfish. They want it all. So, that's one reason I'm running for president. The second reason is that I worry very much that not only do the oligarchs control the economy, I worry about their growing influence over the political system as well. Funny, I was just reading an article today describing a candidate who will remain unknown, who was holding I think it was called a low donor fundraiser at $2,700 a person. That's low donor. And the truth is you have people like Jeb Bush who are running around the country raising astronomical sums of money from millionaires. They're getting in a room and people give $1 million here and $1 million there. And then you have the Koch brothers prepared to spend some $900 million on this election cycle. Sheldon Adelson sitting there in Las Vegas having all the Republicans come to his office to have them tell him what they will do for him. Seeing on the United States Senate floor and in the House piece of legislation after piece of legislation which is designed to protect the interest of only a handful of people. I'm the ranking member of the Budget Committee, and we're dealing now with the Republican budget, which, among many other really horrendous things, does away with the estate tax, which will provide $269 billion in tax breaks to whom? To the top 0.2%. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Fewer than 6,000 of the wealthiest families in America. And at the same time, They allow to expire the added benefits we put into the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit, which helps low and moderate income families. So huge tax breaks for billionaires and millionaires and raising taxes on low and moderate income families. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens under the orders, if you like, of the big money interests who fund these campaigns. And unless we overturn the Citizens United, unless we figure out a way to once again recreate a vibrant democracy where every person has a vote, and that's what matters, not how much money you have. And you can see the media, any idiot, and I say this respectfully, who's a billionaire, who wants to run for office, on that day, that person is a very serious candidate. Why? Because he's a billionaire, she's a billionaire. But you have thousands of great people all over this country who know their communities, who know the issues, who are really smart, who want to serve. They can't get involved in politics because they don't know billionaires, they don't know millionaires. And that's where we're evolving. So you're evolving to a society not only where a handful of families control our economy, but they control the political life of this nation as well. So we've got to deal with these things. And what we're trying to do in this campaign is to make it very clear. This is not about Bernie Sanders. It is about creating a movement of millions of Americans who stand up proudly and loudly and say enough is enough. This country belongs to all of us. It belongs to the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend us. It belongs to the children. It belongs to our seniors, people who raised us. It belongs to working people. It belongs to the nurses and the doctors. It belongs to all of us, and not just a handful of billionaires who want it all. And that is essentially what this campaign is about.
Yeah, and then also climate change.
And then, of course, climate change. And this one is, there's so many enormous issues out there. People often ask, well, what's your top issue? There is no top issue. The collapse of the American middle class, income and wealth inequality, and then you have climate change. Bill McKibben, who lives 30 or 40 miles away from me here in Vermont, who is a good friend, has written time and time again and helped organize 350.org to be one of the largest environmental groups in the world. And makes the point we just don't have unlimited amounts of time. There is a short window of opportunity to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy. But even on this issue, Tom, it gets back to money and politics. Because you have folks like the Koch brothers and ExxonMobil, that's how they make their money. They make their money on fossil fuel. And if you think their money is not one of the reasons why you have a Republican Party in Congress, which, with few exceptions, still denies the reality of climate change or the man-made causation of climate change, if you don't think money is the origin of that, you would be surely mistaken, because any Republican who benefits from the Koch brothers or a big energy money who stands up and says, you know what, I think we should listen to the scientists. I think we should transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. That Republican candidate, that Republican would not last long and would be challenged in a primary. So, the issues out there are numerous. I look forward to going all over this country. Obviously, we'll start in the caucus states in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina and Nevada, but we'll be all over the country, and we look forward to working with millions of people to stand up and fight back.
Great. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting. Your opportunity to ask Senator Sanders pretty much any question you'd like. We'll be right back with your calls for Bernie right after this, 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. And also, he has quite a presence over on Facebook as well. You can check it out. And welcome back. Sharon in Bellingham, Washington, listening on KBAI. You're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Bernie, I love you. Anyway, I've already been swimming this morning, and I got to tell you, the flip turns at the wall were amazing. I was doing flip turns like you couldn't believe. But I've also been talking to people this morning, and I'm not real good at putting myself out there to talk to people. I don't feel like I can spit out facts real well and hold my own. And what I want to know is the people who I've talked to who don't know about you, what is the best place to send them to learn about you?
Well, I think for a start, sanders.senate.gov. We have, as Tom indicated, a very strong website. I think we have far more people on Facebook than any other member of the United States Senate. We have a whole lot of information there. So sanders.senate.gov will have some of my speeches and a lot of the views that I hold.
Great.
Thanks very much, Aaron.
Don in Albuquerque, New Mexico, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Did you say Don?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. Before I get into my main topic, I would like to have a real quick, I'm retired on Social Security, not real well off, but I have $100 that I have set aside months ago. How do I send it to you?
Or if you're asking me, I'll tell you. We have a website, a campaign website called BernieSanders.com.
BernieSanders.com?
BernieSanders.com, yeah.
All right, thank you. Now, I have looked, I've done some research. It's kind of hard to find the information, but as far as I've been able to figure out, in the whole history of the Iowa caucuses, except for incumbents, there have only been 2 winners of the caucuses that have actually gone on to get their party's nomination, 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. So basically, they get it wrong like 90% of the time, and yet the media acts like these people are oracles, and just, I don't understand it. Why is it that people think how people in Iowa vote is important?
Well, Don, thanks. I'm not an expert on this. I'm learning more about it every day, but Iowa is the first caucus, so the media will pay an enormous amount of attention to it, followed very shortly after by New Hampshire, and then I think you got South Carolina and Nevada. But it is, let me just tell you, it is my intention, while we pay a lot of attention to those states, we think we have support all over the United States of America, and we intend to run a 50-state strategy. I was recently in South Carolina, which is, and I've been to Mississippi, and I've been to Alabama, and I've been to North Carolina in the last number of years. And I think people underestimate so-called red states in this country in terms of the potential for progressives to do well. I think there is a lot of angst and anxiety in these states. Many of them are some of the poorest states in America. And I think if we are prepared to invest in those states, work hard in those states, we can surprise them.
We're talking with Senator Bernie Sanders. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. We'll be back with more of your questions for the Senator right after this. Welcome back. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. And back to the phone lines, right, Senator?
Yep.
Okay. Marco in Houston, Texas. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders, and hello, Mr. Hartman. Thank you. It is an honor to have this opportunity. And now, Mr. Sanders, my question is, what are your thoughts on programs such as NASA or corporations such as Elon Musk's SpaceX in regards to their goals and, of course, space exploration?
Well, I applaud Mr. Musk. Clearly, we have got to transform our transportation system and our energy system away from fossil fuel. I think we've been very slow in moving in that direction. The idea of moving aggressively toward hybrid cars or electric cars, and the idea of generating our electricity in a sustainable manner is, to me, extremely important. I think we have huge potential in solar. We have seen an explosion of solar in recent years, and while the Obama administration has tried to do the right thing, they have been met time and time again by obstructionism from the Republicans. So I think if we invest heavily in innovation, in new technologies, we can, in fact, transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. I think we can move aggressively toward the electrification of our transportation system, and that's the direction I would like to see us go.
Connor in Atlanta, Georgia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, me?
You are. That's you.
Senator Sanders, thank you very much for taking my call. I, too, believe that socioeconomic status transcends pretty much every other problem that any American can have. So I'm asking you this. Are you in support of ending the war on drugs?
Yeah, in general, I am, of course. I think we want to be aggressive in going after those heavy-duty drug dealers who are trying to, poison children. But we have jails all across this country which are filled with nonviolent drug users who need treatment and not jail cells. So I think there is a growing sentiment, which I strongly support, to undo some of the structures of this war on drugs, which have caused just enormous amount of human suffering and huge expenditures of dollars.
Glenn in State College, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Bernie. I was so happy to sign up. I would like to know, I feel there are people like me who, even though we knew you were going to announce, were just overjoyed when we heard it, because one more time, one of the few times in my life, I get to vote for someone who represents me. And I think there's a sleeping giant of people just begging for someone like you to come along and awaken us. And I'm just hoping I can help and do that. How can we help to
Glenn,
aware that we're rolling in money?
Thanks so much for
we're
your
not doing anything.
Let me respond.
Glenn, thank you.
The campaign website is berniesanders.com, so you can sign up there. And we are absolutely going to be running, and our major emphasis is going to be on a grassroots campaign, mobilizing a whole lot of people all across this country. But Glenn, this is what I want to say. And I say this humbly, and I mean it sincerely. This really is not about Bernie Sanders. I will do my job. I'm a senator. I do my job for Vermont. I'll be a candidate, and I'm going to do my job for the American people, and I'm running to win this thing. But what I've said before, let me repeat again, that if we had the best president that you can imagine, the smartest person, the hardest working person, the most honest person, there are absolute limits to what that person can accomplish so long as we have this incredible concentration of power in Washington, D.C., and wealth and lobbyists and all this stuff. The only way that we make changes, Glenn, is when millions of people literally stand up, get their neighbors involved in the political process, that we transform politics in America from being a spectator sport to one where all of us are actively involved. We are not going to change America if, as in the case of the last midterm election, 63% of the people don't vote and 80% of young people don't vote, and where a majority of Americans probably don't even know who their member of Congress is. You don't change America under those conditions. You change America by activating the consciousness of people, getting them involved in the political process, letting their representatives know that they know what's going on, and if they don't do the right thing for working people, they're out of their jobs. That's what we've got to do together, and that's going to be the theme of this election. It's not just vote for Bernie Sanders, he's going to solve all the problems. That ain't the case. It's going to be millions of people standing up together, state by state, community by community. And so, Glenn, thanks so much for your support. Look forward to working with you in Pennsylvania.
Senator, we just have a minute left before the break here.
Well, we have titled the theme of this campaign is a political revolution. And again, it's not vote for me, I'm terrific and I'm great. It is, hey, we got to do this together. We have to do this together. That's the only way you win campaigns, and that's the only way you make change. Tom, as you well know, civil rights movement didn't happen because Martin Luther King Jr. was there. It happened because for decades, millions of people marched and went to jail and in some cases died to stand up and fight for change. In the same way with the women's movement or the gay movement. It happens from below. People get organized, they stand up. That's what we've got to do now in terms of economics and politics in this country.
Join the movement. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Sanders will be back with more of your calls for Bernie right after this break. Stick around. "28 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Tom Hartman here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our national town hall meeting. And Jim in Los Angeles, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, I met you guys at the Sister Giant conference here. It was pretty awesome. I gave you a letter. I was hoping it was my letter that convinced you to run. Anyhow, it's a great day for America, and I'm ready to work. I'm sure you know how important it is to win back the House and the Senate in order for any president to get anything done. I was wondering if you have a game plan for that.
Sure. The game plan is a pretty simple one, Jim, and thanks for your support. The game plan is to substantially increase voter turnout, to get people who have given up on the political process reactivated, to reach out to young people who in the last election, 80% of them didn't vote, to make them aware that politics is not a joke. What happens in Washington and in state capitals will impact their lives and is the future of this country. So what we have got to do is to educate, we've got to organize, we've got to motivate, and we have to greatly increase the voter turnout. The Republican political game plan is not hard to understand. They do everything they can to make it as hard as possible for people to vote, especially poor people or older people. And they're into voter suppression to a very significant degree, and they want everybody to have an ID card and a driver's license. And it's a little bit difficult if you don't have the money to buy a car or if you're too old to drive. But their job is to suppress the vote, and our job is to substantially increase the vote to make it as easy as possible for people to participate in our democracy. So we want legislation. I've introduced legislation, that would create a national holiday on Election Day, which I think is a very important idea. But bottom line is voter turnout is where it's at. And, Jim, all of us got to do everything we can. And when our people vote, we win. And when people don't vote and big money dominates the political process, they win. And that's the dynamic, and that's what we've got to do is bring out large numbers of people.
Mike in Chicago, listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, it's great to talk to you. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and since 1993, I would face Clinton. I believe started the big Wall Street kind of takeover of the Democratic Party, and I believe with these trade deals, Obama has continued it. So my question to you is, as a lifelong independent, what will it take for you to not say, I'm an independent running a Democratic primary, but I'm a Democrat running in the Democratic primary? Thank you.
Well, Mike, I have been an independent my entire career here in the state of Vermont. That's how I was on the ballot as a mayor and as a congressman and as a senator. In fact, on 2 occasions, I did win the Democratic primaries here, working with Democrats. We knew it was going to happen, and I won the primaries, and I respectfully declined the nomination to stay on the ballot as an independent. So in my heart, I am an independent. I've always been an independent. But obviously, having made the choice to run within the Democratic primary process, I will do whatever secretaries of state require and whatever state laws require to be on the ballot as a Democrat. But I should also tell you that while I've been elected as an independent, I have caucused with the Democrats from my first day in the House of Representatives. So I've been part of the Democratic caucus in the House and Senate for 24 years. Today I am the ranking member of the Budget Committee appointed by the minority leader, Harry Reid. Was formerly the chairman of the Veterans Committee appointed by Harry Reid. So in the Senate, I operate as if I were a Democrat while I'm an independent, and I think that process can work just fine as we go forward. But we look forward to being actively involved in this primary process and win this. It's going to be tough, but I think we can do that.
Josh in Madison, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders, Tom Hartman. It's an honor to be on the air with both of you. I can't wait to help you, Bernie, with your campaign. I just wanted to preface my question with FDR quote from his first inaugural address, and that is, "In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and of vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory." I feel that fits your campaign very well. And my question is, I think I already know the answer, but can we count on you to give a New Deal, FDR-type New Deal to the people, and maybe even a second Bill of Rights that guarantees health care as a right?
Josh, thanks. Great question, and thanks for that quote. Tom, refresh my memory here, but I believe that FDR, in response to Josh's good question, it didn't get a whole lot of publicity because I think it was toward the end of the war.
Yeah.
But he did propose a second Bill of Rights, which was focusing on economic issues. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. I think Michael Moore had that in his film, didn't he?
Yeah, as I recall. And Harvey Kay wrote a great book about it, the second Bill of Rights.
It's a very strong. So to answer Josh's excellent question, let me just say this. All of us believe, I believe, I won't speak for all of us, that the Constitution of the United States is truly a remarkable document, given that it was written over 200 years ago by people who had a lot of intelligence and were thinking well into the future. But I also, when we talk about freedom, freedom is not just the right to say what you want to say. That's First Amendment and terribly important. Freedom is not just the right to assemble and all of the rights that are in the Bill of Rights. Freedom is something more. Freedom, to my mind, means that you have to have the security to be able to live a full and happy life. And you know what? If you're worrying about how your family is going to be fed tomorrow, I don't think you're free. And if you are worried about whether or not you can get to a doctor's office when you or your kids are sick, I don't think that is what freedom is about as well. So freedom means the full right of expression, the right of privacy, all of those things. And I voted against the USA Patriot Act, and I believe in that very, very strongly. But I also believe in economic security. If you are listening to this program right now, and you are 90 years of age, and you're trying to survive on $13,000 a year Social Security, that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. So I think what Josh is saying is when we talk about freedom, it also has to mean economic security. And I 100% agree with that. Healthcare, to my mind, is a right. I'm helping to lead the fight in the Senate not only to prevent cuts to Social Security, but in fact to expand Social Security benefits. This is, as I mentioned earlier, the richest country in the history of the world. 45 million Americans should not be living in poverty. 35 million Americans should not have zero health insurance, while many others have large deductibles and co-payments. Young people should not be nervous. Bright young people should not be nervous about whether or not they can afford to go to college. We can, if we stand together, transform this country in a very profound way. And certainly, that will be a key message of this campaign.
Richard in Leominster, Massachusetts. I know that's not how it's pronounced. How do you say your town, Richard?
Leominster.
Leominster, thank you. There you go. You're on the air.
Tom, you weren't even close on that one.
I know. I'm so sorry. Okay, Richard.
I listened to you speak on C-SPAN last summer, and you said 45,000 people died last year because they didn't have health care.
Yeah.
And yet they spent $3 trillion on these wars because 3,000 people died in 9/11. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think two things. Thank you for your question, Richard. I think the number was 42,000, and hopefully that number may have gone down with an expansion of health care through the Affordable Care Act. But what nobody ever talks about is a study, Richard, was done in your state at Harvard University some years ago. And some clinicians looked at the numbers, and they estimated, I think, I won't swear to you now, but I think the number was 42,000 people every single year die because if they don't have health insurance and you don't have money, you delay going to the doctor. You don't go to the doctor. And by the time you walk into the doctor's office, it is often too late. And I have talked to many, many physicians in Vermont, other places in this country. They say, yeah, people walk in the door, it's terminal, we can't help them. And so if you have universal health care, and I believe in a Medicare for all single-payer system, if you have accessible health care, so that if you are feeling ill today, you can walk into a doctor's office and get treatment today. When that happens, we will save tens of thousands of lives every single year, and that's a fact.
And in the 40 seconds or so we have left, we'll also save a lot of money, right?
Absolutely. This system, Tom, don't get me going. You touch a sore nerve. This system is so dysfunctional. We spend so much money, and we get so relatively little value. We spend almost twice as much as the people of any other major country on earth that guarantee health care to all people, and yet the health indices, the results that we get for what we spend often is not as positive as other countries. So it's a largely dysfunctional system with a huge amount of waste in it.
It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Sanders taking your calls, answering your questions in our National Town Hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for the Bernie Buzz, his newsletter, and it's a great news website as well. And welcome back. Dave in Canton, Michigan, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Dave.
Yes, thank you. It's a privilege to be able to speak with you. I'm calling about national health care.
And your question for the Senator, Dave?
Yes, it's about national health care. My plan is to reform the federal income tax and replace it with a national sales tax and use half of that national sales tax to pay for national health care. It's $100,000 with no federal income tax for anyone from the first $100,000, 15% national sales tax, half of that to pay for national health care. Okay. Any plan that we can present to the American people that makes common sense, they will more than happily walk to the polls and vote for it.
Okay, Dave, let's get Bernie's thoughts on that.
Well, Dave, I believe in a national health care program. I believe in a Medicare for all single-payer program. I think it's a bit absurd that the United States remains the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. And as I just mentioned, we end up spending almost twice as much per capita on health care as other nations, and yet we're left with 35 million people who have no health insurance and even more who are underinsured. So clearly, we have got to move forward to guarantee health care to all people as a right. Now, if you do that and you say health care is a right of all people, you need to fund it publicly. And to do that, you're going to have to, while we do away with private health insurance costs, so people are not paying for their Blue Cross Blue Shield or the Aetna or whatever they're paying for, they will have to pay more in taxes. And the question is how you do that in a progressive and fair way. My view in general is that at a time when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, and I mentioned earlier, some 99% of all new income today is going to the top 1%. You have the 14 wealthiest people making several $100 billion more in wealth, seeing more wealth than they did a few years ago, that under those conditions, what you need is a very progressive income tax and a fair corporate tax, which ends many of the loopholes that corporations currently enjoy. And I think you do that, and I think if you create a simpler healthcare system, not this complicated, bureaucratic one, which is geared to make huge amounts of money for the insurance companies and the drug companies, if you do that, I think we can provide quality care to all Americans in a fair way.
Okay. Jordan in Chillicothe, Ohio. We have just a minute to the break. Real quick question for the Senator. Jordan?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for taking my call, and Bernie, thank you for deciding to run. My question is, Bernie, I know you support rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. I was wondering if you support building solar roadways to help combat climate change as well as taking care of our crumbling roads.
That's a great point. Not enough that I know definitively, but I think there are huge opportunities for solar, and that may well be one of them. I just can't speak definitively because I haven't studied it. But I can tell you, Jordan, that I introduced legislation for 10 million solar rooftops so that people would get financial help in establishing solar rooftops on their own homes or buildings that they own. And utilizing solar in the most effective way that we possibly can is something that I'm keenly interested in.
We'll be right back with more of your questions for Senator Sanders right after this. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, by the way, at sanders.senate.gov. Minutes before the hour. Voice with Despair is not an option. The Thom Hartmann program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Sanders taking your calls. Marcia in Angier, North Carolina. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Congratulations, Senator Sanders. I got a couple of things.
Marcia, I can hardly understand you. Are we on the speakerphone?
Can you hear me now? No.
No, it sounds all muffled. Is your thumb over the microphone or something?
No, it's that I got.
Okay, Marcia, I can't understand you. I'm going to have to put you on hold, and maybe you and Danielle can figure out. Charles in Opelika, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, good afternoon, Senator Sanders.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. I was thinking about voting for Hillary until you entered the race. And, I guess old habits are hard to break, so I'm going to open my mind up to you, as far as when you start debating, and give you a fair shot as well. But my question today is basically execution of the mentally ill. I think I'd be more inclined to vote for you if you was to sign a executive order to stop or make a stay on executions on the mentally ill. I think the right wing is actually using that as subliminally, as a way so that we can be afraid of them.
Yeah, Charles, let's get Bernie's opinion on this.
Thanks. You raise an important question, and let me just give you an answer that I suspect not everybody will agree with. But I'm against capital punishment in general. I understand, and certainly for people who are mentally incapacitated, who don't know what they're doing or even what's happening to them. I think people have been executed who really were not even aware of what was going on. And that's not something that a civilized nation should be engaged in. But in general, this is what I think. Look, there are people who commit horrendous crimes. We all know that. And we are furious at them. We can't understand their barbarity. But I think with so much violence in this world today, I just don't think the state itself, whether it's state government or the federal government, should be in the business of killing people. So when you have people who have done terrible things, they're going to spend the rest of their lives in jail, and that's a pretty harsh punishment. But I am against capital punishment.
Helen in Ithaca, New York, listening on 1470 AM. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, hi. My name's Helen. Hi. Congratulations. I'm so happy that you're running for the candidacy and that you're running for it seriously. You're not going to be like a debating partner for Hillary Clinton or anything.
No, that's correct, Helen. You're right.
Yes, and I'm going to work for you, and I already sent you a check, but I hope I get a cool T-shirt or something.
All right, we'll work on that.
I've been reading for months and hearing over the radio and stuff. People are critical of you. They say that both you and Elizabeth Warren you excel in domestic policy, but you kind of don't know anything about foreign policy. So since this world is in a bit of a quagmire, I would say, like what's going on in the Middle East and in Africa, and I also, I'm not. All my grandparents are from Ireland. Okay, so
Helen, what's your question?
Right, my question is, what do you? You've got to bone up on that.
Okay, you're asking Bernie his position on foreign.
Okay, Helen asked a good question, and
the Middle East.
Look, the truth is, Helen is right in saying that most of the work that I have done in the Congress and the committees that I've been on, that I wanted to get on, have focused around economic issues and healthcare issues and the needs of kids, the needs of the elderly, needs of veterans. I was chairman of the Veterans Committee. That's true, and that is where most of my focus has been. But Helen is also right, is that if you are president of the United States, you obviously have got to be extremely knowledgeable about foreign policy. And, Helen, you'll hear me talking more about that. But this is what I do want to tell you. I do know something about it. And that is that way back, right after I was elected, literally a few months after I was elected to Congress in 1991, I had to face a vote on whether or not we get involved in the first Gulf War. And I voted against it. And then I had to vote on the war in Iraq. And I not only voted against that war, but I helped lead the opposition to that war because I feared very much what could happen, the destabilizing effect that war would have. So, I have cast some very significant foreign policy votes and have been active on some issues. But Helen is right. Foreign policy is an enormously important part of what any president has to deal with. And I will be speaking out forcefully and hopefully intelligently on those issues.
Senator, we have a minute and a half left. You want to get another call in, or would you like to? One more call. Okay. Troy in Chicago, listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Quick one.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Senator Sanders. I was really stoked about you announcing your bid for candidacy yesterday, and I've donated, and will be volunteering. I was just wondering, Senator Sanders, are you any aware that Occupy movement has endorsed you for presidency? And that was pretty much my question.
As a matter of fact, somebody just told me that, literally within the last hour or so, just before I went on the air. And I appreciate that. The Occupy movement, as I have said many times on this show, played a very, very important role in focusing attention on two major issues that we face as a nation. Number one, the power and greed of Wall Street, and I happen to believe, and we'll be speaking at some length on this issue, that we need to break up these huge and powerful financial institutions. And the second role that Occupy Wall Street has played is to talk about income and wealth inequality, and that's certainly going to be a central theme of my campaign. So I want to thank all of the people in the Occupy movement for the very important work that they have done, and we look forward to working with them in the coming months.
That's great. 20 seconds or 2 seconds. All right. Senator Sanders, I wish you the very best, and thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to talking with you next Friday.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Senator Bernie Sanders.